Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Film Seizure. I'm Jeff Arbuckle. With me, as always, Chuck Moore. Chuck, how's it going?
Going great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Also with us, Jason Oliver. Jason.
Hi.
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 How's it going? You doing
That's
good?
good. That's good. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
So this week we have a movie that Jason and I have long talked about doing, even before Chuck joined us on this show, and that is 1997's Contact.
3, 2, 1. Oh, I was late.
Was that the story you were going to tell?
No.
Oh, okay. Anyway, yeah, this is Robert Zemeckis, Jodie Foster, and Matthew McConaughey, Tom Skerritt, Angela Bassett, John Hurt as a weirdo rich guy. Anyway,
That's John Hurt. Holy shit.
yeah. Anyways, so this is our third week of our sci-fi business.
Yeah.
And second straight, well, really kind of third straight week, really, because there's some stuff in Sunshine that certainly connects religion to stuffs.
Almost more than.
I had no idea we had this like faith and science theme. This
Man, we ain't even done yet with this
I know.
month.
Well, it's with the magnum opus of them all. Yeah.
Yeah, coming. It's on its way. But anyway, yeah. So if you thought we had already, come off as super religious this month,
I pray for you if you thought that.
yeah, just hold on. So anyway, so yes, this is this probably very easily top 3 favorite movies of 1997.
This is a good year too.
It's a good year. It's good.
Yeah.
I remember seeing this in the theater, going to it because I knew it was based on a Carl Sagan novel. And I'm like, oh man, I love me some Sagan. And I've always liked Jodie Foster, and it's like, yeah, I'm on board here. Let's watch this. And I just freaking love it. In fact, I think I probably ended up going back to see it very shortly after probably seeing it on opening day or whatever. Just love this movie.
Oh, so you're one of those people that sees movies multiple times in the first week. Did you have a box of Kleenex with you, Jeff? This is a callback to last week.
No, I didn't.
No.
No, but I mean, like, you do that back in the 90s and the 80s because it would take a long time for it to get on VHS or cable.
Sure.
And also when you're 20 years old and, it's like you go during matinee times too and go in for $5, or whatever. But yeah, so, you guys, I know you guys have seen, I know Jason has seen this movie. Chuck, you've seen it before this, right?
Oh, yeah. I saw it first run in the theater. I remember being very excited about it because Jodie Foster, I don't know what year did Silence of the Lambs come out?
91.
Several years before.
91. So I was a fan of her. This is much later, but I was a fan of hers. And Carl Sagan, I used to watch his show all the time. So yeah, and Robert Zemeckis even. Big fan of Zemeckis. So this hit all the notes for me. And I'm not a big sci-fi guy, but I do like the whole idea of communications. So the way this movie presents communication, I was like, I want to see that. I got to see that.
Not a big sci-fi guy who
I'm not a big sci-fi
curated
guy.
a sci-fi month.
Yeah, I mean, it takes kind of a special sci-fi movie to really hit me.
Well, let me ask you this.
I like sci-fi because I like finding the next great sci-fi movie, because when they're good, they're good. They're awesome. Yeah.
Sure.
Well,
There's a lot
let,
of bad,
let,
there's a
let
lot of
me.
bad ones too.
Well, there's a lot of bad ones, but let me ask you this though, Chuck. It's like you enjoyed most of the Star Trek movies that we watched a few years ago
Yes, for various reasons.
for various reasons, but I would argue between like while Star Trek has always been considered more sci-fi than say like Star Wars, you like space operas, that sort of stuff more than sci-fi. Is that what you're saying?
That's funny because for years I would have told you I hated Star Wars
Yeah.
too.
But you like Flash Gordon.
I do. I fucking love Flash Gordon.
There you go. Well, that's that. So
Okay,
so
so
replace Star Wars with with
well, let me just go back. Sci-fi is not the first type of movie I will seek out. It doesn't mean I don't like them or don't enjoy them or don't love them when I see a good one, because I do. But if there was a horror film coming out or a comedy film coming out, I would probably choose those first. That's more the thing. And I do get aggravated. I don't even know how to explain this necessarily, but sci-fi aggravates me when it gets too into its thing. And I don't even know how to explain it, so I should just leave it alone.
Well, because the reason why I wanted to kind of differentiate, because this Contact is much more hard sci-fi.
Yeah.
Like this is
Well, yeah,
this
I can
is
dig
like,
that. It's grounded.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
grounded, and I can dig grounded sci-fi or hard sci-fi, if that's what you want to call it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can believe in the science of it.
Right. It's connecting dots between realistic science to the
Yes.
extreme that it goes to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
also takes place in a contemporary time and place.
Oh yeah, it's not.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not like oh, we have to go into the spaceship and fight the Galactic Council of the
Or it's not told like
goobers.
100 years in the future or something.
Right.
Yeah.
But maybe I need to re-look at my relationship to science fiction, because my favorite author of all time is Kurt Vonnegut. And that, I mean, he writes a lot of science fiction shit. I like every movie this month. Granted, I picked 4 of them, right? Like I put 4 of them in my list, or at least 3 of them. But yeah, now I gotta think about this.
You got to rethink your relationship with science fiction.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It happens with stuff all the time, and I think that's what's cool about film and art and literature, is it makes you reassess shit all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I yes, I've seen this movie before.
Yeah. Sorry, Jason. Go with that. Go with your history of this. Well, no, Chuck threw me off by saying he doesn't like sci-fi.
I know. I thought. It was funny.
for sure he did.
I've said it to you guys both before, but go ahead, Jason.
Whatever.
I just thought it was funny in the context of this month. It cracked me up.
Yeah.
But the yes, I've seen this movie. I saw it in the theater. I had read the book.
Oh,
It's one of my favorite books. But funny enough, like it's been probably 20 years since I read it. But I had probably read it at least once before the movie came out and twice after. But it's so different. Like the book is so different from the movie, and it's cliche to say that the book is better, but it is. It just is.
Well, it seems what I was reading about the book was that it seems a lot more detailed in some areas.
Yeah, but it's also like very much a product of the Cold War too.
Sure. Yeah.
So it takes that angle as well, and like it's like a space race where the Russians are trying to build their machine and the U.S. is trying to build their machine, right? So it's like it's different, but I think it's it just gets more into the weeds with the science, and I don't know. It's just cool. It's a really cool book. Actually, I was trying to find my copy and I couldn't find it, so I bought another copy of it. And I had some wild thing in my brain like a week and a half ago that I was going to try and read the book before we did this episode, but that was not going to happen. Just didn't have enough time. Just did not have enough time. But yeah, I really like this movie. But it's interesting watching it in 2024 especially like since the last time I've watched it, I feel like the political landscape has changed so much. There are parts of this movie that kind of hit harder, but there are also parts of this movie that I almost feel are a little bit naive, for lack of a better word. Specifically, like the relationship between Palmer Joss and Ellie just feels a little, to me, forced now. Way Hollywood. I seem to remember their conversations having a lot more depth than they actually do, which we can talk about. It just, on a whole, the movie felt a lot less like deep than I remember.
Their romantic relationship is not needed. It would be, and I think it would answer to the depth of their conversation if they were having more philosophical conversations for the sake of what she was trying to do outside of a relationship, because they could, obviously the relationship is the means to have
let's just maybe wait, because we're having
you
to talk.
Just said it.
I know,
I'm just
but
saying it. Yeah.
But I think, if we're going to get into a debate about it, we're going to have to talk about it in vagaries. Holy fuck.
Variety?
No, vagaries. Because we're not there. We don't have the context yet.
Yeah.
But anyway, I still really like the movie. I want to get that out of the way. I still really like the movie. It just felt a little like maybe a little too overly optimistic for my tastes.
Well, I think I do think that I think what you're getting at, I can kind of agree with, because if I think about it from the standpoint of 2024, the science world and the religious world, at least in terms of talking heads, would be running into each other as hard as they possibly can and headbutting each other. I know what you're trying to say, and I don't necessarily disagree, but at the same time, I think we're living in a different time with a lot more conflict around things that earlier in our lives were not conflicting things.
Yeah, and I think the central theme, which I think I can say, of the fact that science and faith can coexist, right? I don't know if it can.
Well, I don't think it can right now. I mean, but I think there is a way for spirituality and science to coexist.
Sure. I feel like this movie puts its finger on the scale a little too much in the way of faith. It does it in really interesting ways that we'll talk about, but I still think it's kind of putting its finger on the scale a little bit, and I wonder ultimately what Carl Sagan thought of the ultimate screenplay and its message, because I mean Sagan was a pretty hard agnostic, at least, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So
but I do think his voice is here though still, because I think there is a way to, I think what we get at the end of this movie, I think we do understand something about, I think it's okay. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah. All right, fair enough.
All right. So the movie, the movie opens. This is one of two movies that I will never, ever, ever forget how it kind of opens with its title sequence. and both movies we've talked about on this show. The concept of how sound and how transmission travels away from the planet, right? Because that's ultimately that's the whole key to everything, is the fact that we're sending off messages whether we intend to or not. We are letting those broadcast signals go, and it starts like with a relatively close shot of Earth, and as it pulls back through, it is the radio broadcasts become older and older and older, until eventually we're all the way outside of the Milky Way. We kind of start going through various other elements of the universe, and then we pull out through the eye of a young Ellie Arroway, played by Jenna Malone. I didn't realize it was Jenna Malone until this time around. Yeah. But she's she's very, very she is very much into calling, using a ham radio. She's a ham radio operator, amateur. She's just trying to see who she can reach, and she reaches somebody from Pensacola. Now, I think they said that she grew up in Minnesota, right? I think. So she's kind of also getting an understanding of how far away she can communicate with people. And so, like she has like a little map, and she, does everything. And this is, again, it's almost like we're watching movies that are made by people who know how to make a movie, because all of this stuff is important to inform her character, especially when it comes to her father, and her love for her father, what her father kind of inspired her to do, but also the distances in which she can communicate with what equipment she has available to her. Just simply liking to reach out and see what comes back. And then that night, she draws a picture of what she assumes Pensacola, Florida looks like, which is also exactly what is tapped into when her journey completes. I love that all of this stuff is set up, but it's not thrown away. So the fact is that you're always thinking about it, so that when it pays off nicely. But then we move into the future, and we are still in the past, but a little bit further up the timeline. We now see that Ellie has grown up. She has graduated from MIT, and it's now Jodie Foster, and she is going to work at a radio satellite installation in Puerto Rico, where she has gotten some funding to work with SETI, which is the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And she is basically going to use the radio to basically just scan the skies for as much as she can. This is where we also meet a lot of the people that she will continue to work with throughout the course of her career, with William Fichtner being there. He's playing a blind guy who actually comes in pretty handy, because he can hear deeper into the messages than the people who can see are able to hear, which comes back into play later. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you really do kind of get the understanding of how kind of frustrating this life is, because the sky is real big. And when you're pointing the telescope or the radio dishes into one very specific spot in the night sky, that's all. And you're probably not going to you're probably spending most of your life listening to nothing. Mm-hmm. But she's dedicated at it. She knows, and it's based on something that her father had told her in the early scene, which was, she asked if there's anybody else out there, and he says, well, it would seem like a big waste of space if there wasn't, which is something that Carl Sagan was known to say. Even though
I've always liked that. It allows the imagination to expand.
absolutely,
It's narrow worldview, right?
yeah.
Yeah. This is a very simple device to allow yourself to think beyond yourself.
Absolutely. And, I mean, if you're religious, if you're deeply religious and you buy into the whole firmament thing, then yeah, there isn't waste of space. It's, just pinpoints of light in I don't know, soup that's in the sky, I guess. But if you have any kind of question, or if you have any kind of ability to kind of think a little bit bigger, then yeah, I mean, they talk about Occam's razor a couple of times in this movie. If the universe is as big as we think it is, then of course there has to be something out there. But yeah, so she does think that she ends up hearing something, but it turns out to be like a radio wave or something, transmitting from, or a satellite or something. I can't remember exactly what they say it is,
It's
but
something that's been logged before.
yeah, that's it. So it's already, it was a quasar. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, it was already logged, 20 years ago or whatever. Now her teacher, her professor, when she was at MIT, is now a presidential science advisor, played by Tom Skerritt. And he's going to be coming to Puerto Rico to kind of meet with everybody. And before he comes, she ends up meeting Matthew McConaughey, who plays Palmer Joss, who is he says he's a man of the cloth without the cloth. He went to college, he studied theology, he quit seminary, but he is still deeply spiritual.
He had you don't find this out. You find this out a little bit later, but he had some sort of spiritual experience that led to his belief in God. He's very non-denominational in his belief.
Yeah.
Jesus isn't really a thing here. It's more of just like a general belief in some higher power, right?
Right.
And that at odds with Ellie's agnosticism at the least. Yeah.
Oh, she's flat out atheist. I mean, because I think she becomes an atheist the moment because we do see continued flashbacks to her being and I know you want to talk about the shot of when her father dies.
It's hard to talk about. It's just amazing.
Yeah. But when her father died, like the preacher or the reverend basically kind of tried to give her the whole, it's not easy to understand God's plan or whatever. And she's like, she's too pragmatic to think that way. It's like, we should have had pills downstairs so that I could have gotten to him faster if he had had an incident. Yeah. I think it would be extremely generous to say that she's agnostic. I think she just is either completely and totally anti-theist or completely and totally atheist.
I mean, I think as a scientist, I think you'd at least be curious.
I mean, well,
I think she'd learn lean more towards agnostic than atheist, honestly. Personally.
I think there are things that she says that is more agnostic, because when she says she tries to give a kind of political answer of, while the evidence does not indicate that there is anything, but
I think any scientist or any person who wants proof would be more agnostic than atheist.
Oh, if they want proof of it, yeah. But
That's
I mean,
how her brain operates. She's scientific method through and through. I mean, she has a belief of something that exists that she has no proof of, and she's going to find proof. That's the whole like dichotomy of her character, right? It's
right. So yeah. I mean, if she is open to whatever the scientific method leads her to, right?
Yes.
So in that sense, I think she would be agnostic. Yes, it's maybe a generous interpretation of agnostic. Like the existence of God is probably on the last of her list of possibilities in all things, but it's still on the list.
I agree.
think is my point.
I think, yeah, and I think that if even the list exists until Palmer Josh shows up,
maybe not. It's yeah, but I think that she's not completely turned off to the idea.
No, no, and I would say that it is. I think there are plenty of atheists who would also not be totally turned off to the idea of proof, but they are. I mean, there are plenty of. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think I think if we're being honest, an atheist shown proof would at least take it into consideration. I think, and I may have it backwards, but an anti-theist would be the ones who'd be more likely to shut it out.
Potentially, yeah, but I think it also kind of goes down the road of we're going to talk about Occam's razor a little bit, and we are also, I think, Occam's razor, and there's a Christian philosopher, Catholic philosopher. His name is Blaise Pascal, and he has what he calls a Pascal's wager.
Oh yeah, right? Pascal. Yeah, I know that.
which is deeply flawed.
Oh yeah,
but I also think in some ways, like Occam's razor is flawed.
Sure.
But Pascal's wager is essentially like he's making the case for Christianity in the worst possible way, of saying, well, there's no reason not to believe that Jesus saved us and died for our sins.
Would you rather not burn in hell? Right. Yeah. And it's
but you could come up with anything and put that against that. So it's like any fantasy that anyone comes up with, that might or may not be true. You're telling me I should believe it just in case. It's
my least favorite people in the world, for real, believe just because, right? Yep. Like they're just protecting themselves. They're just like, I believe that you don't believe if that's your reason. So Pascal, you're deeply flawed. It's totally flawed.
Yeah.
Like belief is belief. It's not. Yeah. It's not a statement of.
It's a fear reaction, right? Like I'm so scared that I might end up, I don't know, burning in a river of fire or whatever. And it's like, boy, I don't know. I'd need a hell of a lot more.
You're gonna burn. You're gonna burn in that river of fire if you don't truly believe. I'm sorry to tell you, Pascal, and your fucking wager. You're burning alive on this belief. That's not a belief. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just it is lowest common denominator argument.
And but in some ways, like applied to the scientific method, Occam's razor is kind of as flawed.
Yeah, it sure is, because she is if you are if you're an astronomer or if you're an astrophysicist, you're proving Occam's razor wrong every day of your life.
Yeah.
You really
are. Exactly right.
But you also can't quantify belief. And I mean, that's the whole thing in this movie, really. Sure. Like belief can have substantiating evidence or it cannot. It doesn't change what the belief is, right?
I just don't think that Ellie makes her point very well by using a very Like
it could be.
basic
I don't
example
think
of Occam's razor.
I don't think she thinks he's as smart as he is.
Well,
Right.
at that
I think
point,
she-
she doesn't. She
Right.
doesn't. You're right.
Later,
Yeah.
she does discover
Yeah.
he's pretty
He's
wise.
Because-
he's a piece of ass. When
Yeah.
she first,
Right, because
He's fucking Matthew
he
McConaughey.
said the thing her dead daddy said to her.
Yes.
and-
which is pretty awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's what this movie does really well.
That is a green light to get in the bed.
I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but she is dumbed down by
That's
"Do
fair.
you know what Occam's razor is?" by
That's
the
fair.
guy
Yeah.
later in the movie.
Right.
So
he does the same superiority
Yes.
stick on her. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
that's,
I mean,
that's
the
a
movie.
that's a great observation.
yeah. But so anyway, so he's, he is talking about how he wants to write a book about science and religion because he thinks that really well, the other thing I want to say about Ellie real quick to your point, Jason, it could be the script is trying to boil down a much more complex novel concept that it can't in 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I'm positive
really
that's
kind of
the
it's
case.
essentializing that, which then I think loses some of her some of the nuance of her beliefs.
I think what's important is that they're common in their belief of a pursuit of truth.
Yes,
They
because
both agree that truth is important. And Ellie's
just they're
pursuit
coming
of
from
truth
it
is
from-
through science,
and his is through
pursuit
faith.
of truth is through faith. Yes,
Right.
But if
And-
their truth is the same, that's okay.
yeah,
If it's true, it's true, right?
Right.
So they're
He
both
is not
open,
gonna-
I think, at least in that regard.
absolutely. He's not gonna if he can say, or if she can say, this thing exists because of X, Y, and Z, and we have here's the thing. I mean, in this case,
She needs empirical evidence. He does not.
exactly, and
Because he experienced something that he cannot explain.
right.
Yep.
But at the same time, though, he's okay if he's not against the concept also of people, or at least he comes across as being okay with people not believing him because
Right.
to his personal truth means something to him.
Right.
I mean,
He's
that's-
not.
yeah.
He's kind of refreshing in that regard, where
Absolutely.
he doesn't care if you believe what he believes.
He's
And
not
he doesn't-
thumping
and he
his
doesn't
Bible at
need
you.
to. Right. Exactly.
Is he ever carrying a Bible in this movie? I don't think he
I
is.
don't think so.
Probably in his backpack.
Oh, probably. But
So
I mean,
he
but
probably has one on him, but he's
He's
probably not.
He's probably got one of all of them: a Koran, a Torah.
yeah, I
Bible.
don't think he's not. I mean, he's not somebody who's going to sit there and say that the Christian faith is the only path.
Well, yeah,
to
Jason
truth.
said earlier
exactly.
that he's non-denominational.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's like the one thing that looks like he has a Bible. Turns out it's his little notebook for his interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, so he meets her knowing he kind of knows who she is because he does mention that he wants to talk to David Drumlin, who is Tom Skerritt, who is her former professor, but also
The presidential scientific advisor.
exactly, and he is and he's the guy who's basically funding her presence in Puerto Rico.
God, what an asshole he is.
Oh
by
my
the way.
God, he is just the worst.
Isn't he? Oh my! I mean, and he's
He's so
I like Tom
condescending about
Skerritt,
it.
but that makes me
incredibly
dislike
condescending,
him.
but he's
in general.
also like, man, he is the epitome of the white male.
He's a vulture.
pushing his like female, brighter, more passionate, like just wanting to take all the credit for the work of the.
Well, he's an
right?
opportunist.
It's like, oh, it's crazy.
He's a vulture. Yeah.
He's an opportunist, which I think. I mean, honestly, I think if it was William Fichtner who discovered the message, he would take the credit.
He would.
But
You're right. But it's that scene when Ellie realizes that she's not the one that's going to be giving the presentation,
Oh
right at the
yeah.
press conference.
That's so
And
scummy.
and he just like walks in right in front of her, like no warning. She's about to walk up there. So worst feeling in the
After
world.
he had pulled the plug on her fucking,
Yeah, it wasn't
shit.
even. He wasn't even a part of. It was independent research.
It was self-funded by Madden. Madden, yeah,
by
Haddon.
Haddon. Yeah.
Haddon. Thank
By
you.
John Madden. John Madden's like he's circling the mat.
Here's the satellite.
But I can only imagine like how many women have felt like that in that moment where they're
Yeah.
Oh, especially in science?
completely embarrassed and diminished and pushed aside by their older male counterpart.
Well,
When
and
she
you know
sits
who's
down and just like is barely keeping it together, man,
well,
that's
and
good acting.
and even
And then the
more
next
so,
time
well,
she
yeah,
shows
Jodie
up,
Foster. She's one of the
next
greatest
time she
actresses.
shows up with him, she's smiling,
Yeah,
which is
she
like
has to
what
swallow
women
it.
have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
like the amount of shit she has to eat in this movie.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well,
oh,
and you know what's even
it's
like,
well done in this movie, though.
Yeah,
I
it
appreciate
is.
that in this movie. Like you feel her pain, you feel her swallowing her pride, and you feel like it's an unjust.
and
or
and you
oh
want
boy,
to
is-
punch, and
towards
you
her.
want to punch
Oh, I want to kill Tom
Drumlin
Skerritt.
like the whole movie. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, and
Yeah.
what's
I wonder if. Sorry, Jeff. One more thing. I wonder if I wanted to punch him 25 years ago. Probably.
Oh, I hated him the first time. I will like it's like there's something that happens later that is a big moment in the movie that kicks off the third act that you do feel bad, but I'm not crying any tears over
Oh, I
him.
never felt bad for him.
Well, I don't feel
wanted
bad
him
for
to
him. I
blow
feel
up.
bad for the scenario, but I feel nothing for him.
Yeah,
okay.
there's you don't miss that him at all. Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah.
But no,
We got to kind of bring this back in a little bit, though.
yeah, so I mean, so basically
All right, go ahead.
go right ahead, Chuck.
I was going to say Drumlin pulled the plug on them in, I don't know if it was in New Mexico, wherever they were, but they decided
It was,
to go to New Mexico.
Yeah, so it's Puerto Rico. He comes to visit. She comes to see him. He dismisses her immediately. And he's like, she even calls him an asshole under her breath. Like he could hear that. But anyway, but good on her. But then the very next day, she shows up and William Fichtner, Kent, is like, there's a place in New Mexico. And blah blah blah. It's like the very large array. We can get in on that. We can get the time there. The government will give us the space if we have the money. We should really go. And she's like, why? We're here. And he's like, nah. Drumlin pulled the plug. Didn't even tell her that. And then she storms off. And he's like, look, I'm saving your career, which she says the line, "It's my life." Which, boy, doesn't that seem kind of prescient, all things considered. Yeah, somebody else making a decision for her. And then, but basically she tells Kent, it's like, yeah, we're going to New Mexico. And she now sets out to try to get the money. She knows that S.R. Haddon is kind of a visionary in some things, so she wants to go and talk. And Haddon, of course, is not there. It's three stuffed suits who really doesn't want to, like, their basic thing is like, you're really kind of sounding more like science fiction because you would be looking, how do we get the return on investment, right? And but there's a camera watching. And the main stuffed suit jerk off gets a phone call and it's like, all right, you got your money. And she realizes that Haddon has been, was involved in the meeting, even if he wasn't right there. 4 years pass and now she's in New Mexico. And once again, the government comes, in this case, it's Drumlin once again, basically going to throw weight around, basically saying, regardless if you have the money or not, they're giving the time to somebody else. You're out.
Yeah, he just doesn't believe in the research, and he's going to do anything he can to squash it in favor of other projects that he deems to be more important.
Right. More tangible. It's the tangibility that a lot of people have. And to be honest with you, if you kind of broaden the scale a little bit, it's the reason why the average American doesn't give two fucks about a space program,
right?
When they maybe should, considering we're going to have a hard time breathing here in the next 150 years. Yeah, well, especially if certain things happen.
They cared. The only reason they cared before is because it was like, oh my God, there was almost like this amazing idea of we can actually do that. And then the Russians, we didn't want to be, it was a good old competition, right?
The moment Sputnik beat us, it's game on.
And the idea that, they can put satellites in the sky, like put us in a really vulnerable position. Yep.
Yeah. We'll do one better. We'll put us on the fucking moon. Right. But I mean, like you'll always hear people say, well, what are you doing about the homeless people? Why do we care about space? And it's like, motherfucker, you don't care about the homeless people. Anyway.
Right.
So, so it's like, okay. Anyway, but I mean, he is that type of person. He's like, he doesn't see any point in it. What he wants is, my guess is, he's playing the political angle of, I know space shit and I know how to put stuff in there that can spy on our enemies or blow them up from space. That would be my guess. I could be wrong, but I'm not. We know the type. But anyway, so he once again comes. Now, there's a little interesting thing in this book that I'm holding up for the camera. So I'm going to talk about Roger Ebert's second review.
I was going to say, this is a podcast.
Yeah, I know. This is Roger Ebert's Great Movies, Volume 4, in which he included Contact just a few years before he died, because he had a change of. He already liked the movie, but he loved the movie after he started realizing he was nearing the end of his life. And he brings up something really kind of interesting in this review. But basically, the day of finding out that everything's being shut down, she gets this transmission, and it is a kind of it's a throbbing kind of transmission that repeats itself, and it doesn't take very long before they realize that the message is being sent repeated based on prime numbers. The first time it's 2, the second time it's 3, 5, 7, so on, all the way up to 101. And so they start dissecting this, and they try to figure out where it's at. They basically figure out it's coming from Vega, which is about 25 light years away. And what's more, though, it's more than just audio. It's there's another transmission underneath it. It almost turns into like a 3-dimensional transmission, because along with the audio, there is video. And boy, if you're one of these weirdos that thought that the Olympic opening ceremony this year was weird, the 1936 one, which was the first television broadcast.
You took that from a meme. I saw the same meme.
But it's true though. Like, if you thought this year was weird and you didn't think that was, boy. But anyway, no, it's a picture of Hitler, and it's the speech declaring the 1936 Olympics open. And which that's a really another interesting thing, because what's the initial thing that Angela Bassett, who I might add, as awesome as Angela Bassett is in general, in this movie, she's complicit in what's going on between Tom Skerritt and Jodie Foster.
Oh yeah.
I mean, she's the one who announces Drumlin to come up to the stage to give the information when Ellie thinks.
But Drummond also is like almost her contemporary or peer, so she's respecting a chain of command as well, right? As far as like a cabinet position goes.
But at one point, she snaps back at Ellie when everybody started talking about like, well, we don't even know if these people believe in a God. And it's like, who fucking cares? And she's like, well, we're not going to shut down any opinions in this. Shut the fuck up. It's like, that's just a stupid thing to say.
But she does keep her on.
She does keep her on. She does keep her on.
She could have just discarded her.
But it's basically like Drumlin's going to be the face of this whole thing. You're going to be the science of it. To
me, that yes, that has the whiff of like women not helping women, but it's also like has the whiff of she's doing what she has to do to survive as well as a black woman who's risen as high as she has. Right.
Fair, but it all smells like shit.
It's all the patriarchy, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's all a whiff of shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, because one of the first things she says is, it's like we spent all those years fighting the son of a bitch, and he's the first thing that we get back from an intelligent life form. And it's like that has nothing. That's not what this. It's like. And Ellie is right in saying it's like the politics has not anything to do with this. It's they saw something that they obviously saw as something intelligent and sent it back to us. That's all it is. And it is
not only that, but it was the first live broadcast.
Yeah.
Of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's one of the first like early like strong radio transmissions that is obviously that like they're responding to the first thing that reached them. Probably.
Yeah. Well, and it also, if you think about when the book was published, the book was published in 85.
Yeah.
Meaning
exactly 50 years ish. Yeah.
It's 50ish year, which is if it takes about 23 and a little over 23 years to get there and 23 years to get back, it tells you where it's coming from.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and that's why they can figure that's why it helps prove it's Vega.
It is a cool shot though, when they're like trying to figure out what it is, and they're kind of
like zooming out
and moving and zooming out, and then they like frickin' James Woods' reaction to it starts looking like a swastika is like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And he starts like immediately freaking out.
Yeah. It's like you got to understand, it's like these people don't have the context of what that even means, and it's like it's just being shot back to us. Right. But it does. I do chuckle a little bit, even though if this movie was made today or if it was a real life thing today, my heart would sink. But like when they go to the large to the array and all the people are there, like the different types of people that are like celebrating this contact of an alien. And there's just like a little section of neo-Nazis just like, celebrating and not fighting anybody, just celebrating because it was Hitler. It's like, come on. It's like, it's funny, but I would hate it if it was real.
Oh, but it so totally would be real.
Oh, it so totally would be. But
it's
anyway,
like, it's the nail right on the head, but it's
real.
It's real.
Motherfucking Elon Musk would be sharing fucking tweets of that shit. Fucking weirdo. Anyway,
I like the alien abduction, UFO abduction insurance. That cracked me up.
Oh my God. Yeah. Just all the different groups of people. And to which I also love Ellie's reaction to all of that, because she's not connected to that at all. Like this is just her job, right? Like it's like she doesn't understand the reaction to it. Like these people have a completely and totally different, take on all of this than her. But anyway, Chuck, we haven't heard from you in a bit. How's it going?
Oh, it's going good. What am I supposed to say?
You want to talk a little bit about Contact?
I do, but every time I try to talk about Contact, I have to wait for a later moment.
Well, is there anything you'd like to talk about with this part of the movie?
Jake Busey.
You're fucking scary, man.
Yeah, like we have that little parade of it actually is like the neo-Nazis would be there, the Christians would be there, the people who make up their song about Vega would fucking be there. They would
There'd
be
be
there.
hippies. There's everybody there.
There's nothing in this scene that yeah. There's nothing in the scene that is untrue. Yes, the dancers, yes. But Jake Busey, that motherfucker is scary.
Yeah. Well, because when he's given his sermon about like science should not take the place of our Lord or whatever, and he looks directly at Jodie Foster. And it's like, damn, that is,
Yeah, I mean, he is the disagreement that Palmer Joss and Jodie Foster could have, right?
Yep. Right.
Because she could arrive at the conclusion there is a God. He doesn't need her to arrive at a conclusion that there is a God. But I don't know if Jake Busey even has a name. He's just an extremist terrorist, right?
Joseph the Terrorist.
Okay, thank you. Joseph the Terrorist is the "you will not replace my God with science" guy. You can't, if you prove my God, you're wrong, which is fucking a weird stance to take.
It is super weird.
Sure is, but that's how a lot of people, even in the mainstream bits, would.
But that is really what he's thinking, though, right?
Yes.
Like,
it is. The fear of science, a lot of it is rooted in the fear that my belief system will crumble.
Yep.
So, it's been this way since the beginning of the Catholic Church.
Oh boy, yeah.
They denied science. They denied science time and time again because they were afraid that it would conflict with their worldview. Yeah.
Well, it's insecurity, right? Like it's not so much like proving or disproving; it's the insecurity of what is found. It's but I mean, you're right, Chuck. You would think like Christian scientists, to my opinion, are not interested in finding the proof of the thing they believe in, right? Like they have lots to say about other things, but I would argue that maybe it's not so much as important to them to actually do the fucking science part of the thing. But anyway, but that's, I mean, again, that's also a 2024 opinion, whereas in 1985 when the novel was written and 1997 when the movie came out, it was a different thing, right? Like it was a different.
I don't know if things have changed as much as you're alluding to, though, in that belief system. Like, right?
Well,
maybe the facts have changed, but I don't think the beliefs have changed.
I agree. I agree with that. I think it's been injected more into politics.
Yeah, I mean,
in the last 20 years.
And I do think that with the help of certain things like internet, social media, the broadening of.
But these are not scientists we're talking about.
No.
I'm talking about the broadening voice of the public.
No, I think you didn't let me finish there. I was going to say people like Jake Busey, that type of character is becoming more and more visible.
Well, yeah, I mean, we all agree that
is the one thing that has definitely changed.
Are the majority or the minority, right? The loudest, most ridiculous people are amplified by.
But I mean, aside from seeing it in a TV show, a movie, or a documentary, we would not, in a everyday scenario, run into somebody like that character.
Well,
that extreme.
This movie is an everyday scenario either.
Well, no, but I'm just saying but what I'm saying is I can go right now to Facebook and send you a post from somebody who is.
We can find that guy.
We can find
100 of them.
Right.
We can find,
absolutely.
And that's the one thing that has majorly changed between now and 25 years ago.
Yeah. The silent or the loudest minority is like projected everywhere.
Right. And it is becoming.
In some way has proven Palmer Joss's point as well.
Yeah.
About, are we really better off with technology? Right.
Right.
Like it's a bit of a myopic blanket kind of thing to say. Like it doesn't consider a lot of really important scientific advances, but are we better off without some technology? Maybe.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would say yes.
That's the whole thing. Like the important people are doing important things, and the rest of us are just arguing on the internet.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, and yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, and it's only been inflamed over the last, I don't
yes,
know, 10 years.
it's been exasperated for sure, or inflamed, whatever word you want to use. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah. So, I mean, like, to a certain extent, that makes this movie a little quaint that you have somebody as prominent as Palmer Joss being as reasonable as he is.
Yes, I think that's the word I was looking for too in the beginning. It was like there's a quaintness to this movie that just kind of like it doesn't live in reality anymore.
Right. No, it
What's
doesn't.
funny
Because,
about real quick, if I can,
No,
like
go for it.
people would call a movie like Contact because of what it's talking about, prophetic, right? Or 1984, prophetic, or those movies that seem to be predicting the future, prophetic. In reality, this shit was happening when Carl Sagan wrote this book, right?
Yeah.
He was probably exaggerating what he saw at the time. And then when the movie came out, it was exaggerated more, but it's not prophetic. This shit has been around forever.
I agree with that. I agree it's not prophetic. And honestly, like
Nobody called it prophetic. I'm not being accusatory.
people like the Palmer Joss character were the more reasonable voices. There's a whole reason like the moderate middle is the true majority in this country, right? Because they're full of mostly Palmer Joss in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like that has shrunk, and maybe it has, or maybe it's just our perception of it, because the far left and the far right and
we're drowning out the voices.
They're drowning out the reasonable voices.
The reasonable voices are the quote unquote normies that aren't really involved quite the same way as the people on the edges are.
Right.
You know,
And I know
the
this
edges,
isn't like any revelation.
No, I mean, they are so not aware of the bloodbath that goes on most sites like Twitter, for example, or whatever. Because they're just not there. They're just not part of it. They still think that certain figures are.
No, I don't. I
But
think
it used
they
to
know
be.
what's going on.
It used to be that it used to be that the reasonable, like Congress, our government, always contentious, but generally people liked each other, even if they disagreed.
Oh,
there was compromise.
My esteemed my esteemed colleague on the other side of the aisle.
I mean, we have literally denigrated in committee meetings to literal name calling and like body shaming in our government. It's insane. We have given the roles of that politicians. Yes, politicians have always been corrupt, but they've always had to be reasonable. They always had to seem normal to get elected. That shit doesn't exist anymore.
The rules of the middle have been given to the fringe, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why we have these insanely fringe and that's the word I'm looking for.
I don't know.
Extreme viewpoints that are getting equal weight
When they really shouldn't.
when they really shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
It's like Occam's razor in some ways, because every single argument shouldn't be given the same weight, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to add elements to prove the thing. You can't just compare one to the other.
Or it's
right?
the I don't want to call anyone crazy, but there are crazy people out there.
Oh no, they're absolutely
fringes,
fucking insane. And some of those
the fringes
he's talking
inward should be disseminated and distilled down to a common argument, right? That can be had between two sides that can be agreed upon. But if those fringe arguments are not distilled at all, and I don't know why we're talking about this now, but if they're not distilled at all, there is no agreement in the middle, because there hasn't been that refinement that happens at every layer in between.
Yeah, there's no coming to the middle, understand with both sides appropriately understanding that yes, this is a fact, or this is an accepted truth, and this is, or whatever, right? And that is kind of the heart of the Palmer Joss character, though, right?
Yeah.
Like it's, he is, it's like
He's
not
distilling the argument on his own.
exactly, and he's like, okay, well, I agree with you that this is accurate. I can meet you here, but when you have a situation where you have, textbooks that want to say that the Holocaust happened, and then you have some people who want equal ground to say that I didn't think it happened. That's not the same. You can't you can't meet in the middle of that.
Like the mere fact that that we're teaching creationism as a equal partner to the theory of evolution is absolutely mind-bogglingly stupid, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, what? So if I come up with some bullshit, right? And I'm not saying I believe the literal interpretation of the Book of Creation is not what we should be teaching in school.
Well, I believe that is absolute bullshit. So I'll say it for you, Jason.
Yeah, but we need some between us and the other people to make that.
But it's like, all right, well, why aren't we teaching the Greek myths right alongside them as a possible truth? We teach the Greek myths as a way of teaching the history and as a way of teaching like parable.
Shit,
right?
If we taught Dionysus,
we don't teach it. We don't teach it as a. I know, yeah, feast of Dionysus.
If we taught Dionysus, nobody would have been mad at the Olympics. Like, for Christ's sake. Like,
they still would have been mad because drag queens. But yeah.
Well, that's why they're mad. But they would not have no feet to stand on.
Anyway, I don't know where we're going with this.
No,
but,
I mean,
let's
this
get
is
back
the heart
to context.
But this is the heart of those concepts, right?
Yes.
That is. It's being distilled into a different type of story or a different type of narrative, but it's those same concepts, right? It's the same idea of what's acceptable, what is okay to believe in, and what is being proved every day as something new, as something different, as something, and yeah, it's anyway, but yeah, so so what ends up happening is
Bill Clinton ends up happening.
Yeah, so yeah, there's some controversy about that. I guess
I read about that. That's super weird.
Yeah, the White House was pissed that they and apparently CNN was also like, we don't like our people being used. And it's like, whatever, fuck off. It's just.
But what didn't Bill Clinton like agree to it?
No. The speech that he was giving was about finding the fossilized microbes on Mars. I remember that speech. I remember that day. I remember seeing the press conference. They took that and they chopped it up to make it sound like they were talking about this.
Right.
So technically, they didn't like the way that was changing the words that he was using, I think, is what their issue was. That it made it sound like he was complicit in a narrative.
Much he was still president when this came out,
wrong.
Right? Yeah,
I read this wrong. I read it that the press speech was written in a way that it could talk about the thing that happened, but then also be used in the movie. But they just cut it out.
They just lifted the actual press conference.
Yeah. Okay.
Which they
looked for stuff that would work, and
I kind of understand it, but at the same time, it's like this is also the same director who just put Forrest Gump, who just had Forrest Gump tell the president he had to pee.
Right.
It's like
exactly. It's like I think we all understand that this is
winking at us. It's a little cheeky. Yeah. It's a little cheeky. It's fun.
I do remember thinking that was pretty cool though, because I was like, wow, this movie is like fucking super current, right? Because it's using Bill Clinton, like this is as contemporary as this gets, right?
Did they get lucky that press conference happened in '96 when they were making this movie, because it's like, oh, hot damn, we got something we can.
Yeah.
It's like, thank you, actual science, for finding this thing. But anyway, yeah, and CNN was mad because there's a lot of CNN in this, but CNN was owned by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers like, why cast people as we got people? We can just bring in Bernard Shaw. He's cool.
Yeah. Hell yeah, Bernard Shaw.
But anyway, yeah, later on, the head of CNN was like, we shouldn't have been used in a fictional. It's like, come on. It's like, if you can't disseminate fiction and reality. Oh, wait, what am I saying?
I mean,
Fox uses itself in fiction
we
every
just
day.
deep fake them now,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that, Chuck? Sorry.
No, all I said was Fox is using fictional shit every day, I think is what I said.
Yeah, pretty much.
Remember.
Yeah, that's pretty much right. So anyway, but yeah, so what ends up happening is that the message that's being sent had the audio part, had the video part, but there was a third layer that was sending massive amounts of data. And when they downloaded the data and they looked at it, it looks like a bunch of gobbledygook until they spread it out and they realized that there were borders that would match up. And
pages and pages of data.
Yeah, it was like 20 some pages of data. And there was like a primer that would match up the pages.
This is the story, though.
Okay, go for it.
My story from earlier.
Awesome.
Because Madden has to bring Jodie Foster and Haddon. Excuse me. No, it's
John Madden and Pat Summerall's on this team here.
Now they've got those gloves.
It's John Madden. He's like, come in here.
That's what you call putting mustard on it.
But he found the primer, right, which on the edges of the paper, folding shit over into a cube or whatever the hell he did.
It was a dodecahedron.
Yeah, here's your 10-headed dragon.
The dodeca dragon.
Yes. The thing was with this is I've been saying clever girl forever.
Oh yeah.
Forever. I've been saying that about shit. And every time I say it, I'm like, Silence of the Lambs. And someone's like, no. That is from Jurassic Park. And I'm like, no. Somebody said that to Jodie Foster.
This is why it's in your brain. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody said that to Jodie Foster. And and they're like, no, it's fucking
John Hurt.
Part, but really, it's John Hurt saying it to her when she says, "You found the primer," and he's like, "Clever girl."
Yeah, and he says it kind of like Anthony Hopkins.
He does. Yeah.
Yes, that's why I always thought it was that from Silence of the Lambs. And anytime someone corrected me, it was like, "That's not from Silence of the Lambs." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." But last night I was like, "Oh shit." I've been wrong for years.
They were right.
They've been wrong too. No, they've been wrong too.
They've been wrong, but right.
Yes. They thought it was Jurassic Park. Go ahead, Jason.
And just to get my David Lynch reference in here.
Oh no.
And John Hurt was the Elephant Man playing across from Anthony Hopkins in the
Sure was.
Yep.
And to get my Star Trek reference in, when I was in high school, I took a drama class, and one of the things we had to do was read a play and then cast it like we were a director, and also talk about how we would do the set and how we would transition scenes. And I did the Elephant Man, and I cast Robin Williams as the Elephant Man, and as the Doctor, I cast Patrick Stewart.
Good job.
Yeah.
And then one other thing with John Hurt is. Just to bring it around to the sci-fi is Alien, yes. Yeah. Bob Scarrett. Yes, exactly.
But this scene is so good. It's so good. Like, she is brought in, and John Hurt is Elon Musk.
He's in space.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, right, but he's better than Elon Musk. He is. He's probably not dead naming his daughter.
Well, sure. I mean, that happened then, but it didn't happen then.
Well, I'm just going to safely assume that
I'm trying to equate.
I'm just going to say I want more Haddon in the movie because he's awesome in the book. He's so badass.
He's awesome in the movie, but isn't he obviously like the evil mastermind who's not the evil mastermind?
Kind of. I mean, kind of. He's certainly.
You know what I'm saying? They're leading us this way the whole time.
He is certainly a one. He's certainly a weirdo because the next time we see him, he's in space because he's got cancer.
Like fucking nose on the fucking camera. Like,
yeah. And
he looks like an evil dude all the time.
Yeah, he does. I mean, part of his mystique and his weird. It's hard to understand if he's trustworthy. But number two is that he is certainly going to be the scapegoat for Congress to basically discredit anything that Jodie Foster will have to say going forward.
I'm not convinced he wasn't trying to do that.
Well, I remember once upon a time thinking,
I'm half joking.
I mean, I remember once upon a time thinking, is Haddon actually an alien?
Oh, like I don't think that.
I had a read at one point in time where I wondered that for a little bit, and I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of interesting. But it's like it doesn't have to be there in the movie, but you can kind of think of him as this kind of very. But there's again my Roger Ebert review, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, does address this to a certain extent.
But forget all that. I mean, we'll talk about that, obviously, right, because you will later. But he just seems like an evil fucking guy. He does. Every time you see him.
I mean, there is certainly a distrusting of the very rich, very powerful, never seen guy who can also break in and get all the information from you when he should.
Yeah, there's no way any of us would trust that fucker right now.
No,
Zero chance.
I mean, the only reason why I think Ellie trusts him is that he's giving her the missing piece for the greatest discovery.
Definitely trust the guy that shows up with the key. Like, fuck you.
But so yeah, he gives her this three-dimensional thing that ends up being schematics for some sort of transportation device.
The primer to open the key to the directions for a transportation device. Sorry for restating that.
No, that's fine. And they don't, and of course, immediately James Woods, being the kind of government stooge guy, is like, well, for all we know, we build it and then a bunch of vegans come out and take over our planet.
He's not wrong either, though.
Well, he's not wrong to have questions.
Skepticism is good.
It is, but he immediately jumps to, he and Rob Lowe immediately jump to like the insane. Kind of.
Fuck Rob Lowe. But I think of like his character, but I think that James Woods, forget what we know about this man now.
Because I don't care about that. I don't care.
Fuck James Woods, right? But I would want him to give that opinion.
His only opinions ever, though, are we're building something to destroy ourselves, which shows you what kind of opinion people have about things they don't understand. They're scared of it, right?
Somebody has to have that opinion, though.
Well, somebody has to have that opinion, but at the same time, it's like these are put every option onto the table, but it's always the craziest people who, well, like we always say, speak the loudest about this. And it's like when Rob Lowe immediately is like, we don't even know if they believe in God. And it's like, what the fuck? What? Who cares? But it's like it's these kind of wild, it's always the worst possible conclusion that somebody jumps to that holds these types of discoveries or these types of advancements back, right? And I think that's the point that is trying to be made with an obtuse character like James Woods's character. He's about the he kind of basically personifies the general fear that people would have about the unknown. And later at the end, when he's doing the Senate hearing, he's representing the the kind of the showboating of, well, this is why we don't care about science, or this is why we're not going to do. He's kind of showboating some of that. Basically,
at the end, he knows full well that some weird shit went down.
He didn't really, though. Angela
Yes, he
Bassett
did.
told Angela.
No, he knew. He already knew.
He said he skimmed it, and she said, "What about the 18 hours?" And he said nothing.
Come on, he already knew.
He already knew. I mean, the reason they're looking for a scapegoat, the reason they're looking for a scapegoat is they want to find an easy explanation, the Occam's razor explanation to feed to the public, and then Area 51 the rest of this shit. Because they don't want this type of possibility to allow them any less control than they have, right?
Right.
It's easier to contain that story than the real story.
Yeah, I mean, he kept telling Angela Bassett to continue because he knew what she could say. Because he already knew that there was, I mean, that's way later in the movie, but we probably should press on.
Yeah, yes. Let's. So basically, they build the machine, and now it's trying to figure out. It's like, okay, well, who's going to go? And they're like, okay, well, we have to at least interview people from other countries because there is an international interest in building the machine. It is also said, kind of a throwaway line, which comes back around later, that that the Japanese government,
they gave up their seat.
They gave up their seat to buy the rights to the technology
and to build. Yeah.
Well, I don't think it was necessarily said at that point that they would build, but they wanted the technology. There was nothing. It's like, okay, fine, whatever. And then so what ends up happening is it really kind of comes down between two people, Drumlin and Ellie. Drumlin had, to be able to be put in this position, he steps down from his position as the science advisor. When Ellie talks to Palmer about what it is that, because she really wants to go. It's her discovery. It's the one thing she's wanted all of her life, was to find out if there was somebody out there, if there's something out there. And he basically explains to her, the whole concept of the time dilation. It's like, you may only feel like you're gone for a short period of time, but by the time you come back, everyone you know and love is going to be dead. And he's like, well, but why wouldn't I want to know? It's like, well, the idea of this is her, it would be like, if Palmer was given the opportunity to die for a few minutes to find out if an afterlife exists, wouldn't he be interested in that too? Is kind of the same idea that I take from it. It's like, yeah, it's dangerous. Yeah. You don't know if you'll make it. You don't know anything, but it is kind of playing the Pascal's wager in a way. It's like, I have to find out. I'm going to take the chance to find out. So she, and basically he railroads her by giving her one last question when she's up for her interview, because she's kind of knocking it out of the park. And he asks her,
Palmer Joss asks her if she believes in God.
Right. To which she says, I don't know what that means. I don't know why that matters, basically. Why are you asking this? To which then it kind of dogpiles at that point, to where, shouldn't that make shouldn't you believe in God if you're going to go out and it's like, I don't know why that would matter. It's like,
the one guy says 95% of the world's population or something believes in some sort of higher power.
Trash.
And so to send someone who doesn't is like
would be a misrepresentation.
This is
It's like,
representation of
to which I would say it's like, cool, dude, whatever. No,
No, this is
it's like,
this is honestly, I agree with
oh, I absolutely don't.
from the perspective of the faithful.
Yeah, but
Like,
but it's
representation, Jeff. We believe in representation,
well,
and that is what we do believe in that, right?
well, yes, but not.
That is what he's talking about. I'm not saying it's right, but I understand it from his position, and he is obviously fudging the shit because he doesn't want her to go.
Right, but I mean,
Right?
but like the guy who's trying to use the 95, it's like, yeah, but that 95% can't even agree on what God they believe in.
I agree with that too. He's fudging the numbers to keep her.
But
stay.
I know that. But I mean, but like at the same time, it's like that's not the representation I believe in. You know,
Well, yeah,
it's
but
like
it doesn't matter.
but I mean, I can explain that people believe in different higher powers to if that conversation even comes up when I'm going to meet an alien. You know, it's like I don't think that should not be the determining factor whether or
It
not
should for the guy who is for him,
yeah,
for
but that's
Palmer Joss, like that's
well, we've also
Jason, help me out here.
We also find
that's
out that Palmer Joss is not being he's not being
I already said
can't
that
find
he's
words
trying to
today.
keep her.
Right, he's trying to keep, but seriously, Chuck, what does it matter
is
if
on the
somebody
committee because
I'm
that's
not
why he's on the.
I'm not talking about Palmer Joss. I'm talking about the other dude who says 95%.
Palmer Joss is the one that asked the question.
I know, but
They were going to let her go before he asked the question. It doesn't matter what the other guy said. It does not matter what the other guy
absolutely
said.
did matter.
It does not because they were going to let her go before Palmer Joss asked the question.
No, but it did matter what they said after that because
she was toast as soon as Palmer Joss asked her.
When he asked that, and then it dogpiled,
and she was toast as soon as he asked.
That my question is, why does that matter? Why
does what matter?
That she believed in God.
That's what Palmer Joss asked her, not the other dude.
Oh my God, we're circling a drain here.
What Jeff is asking is why does it matter? Why is the question relevant? Which was what Ellie's answer to the question was.
Relevant.
Hey, let me talk here. You know, its relevance is questionable. What happens is groupthink takes over.
You guys watched the same movie with me. We all had this argument. It's not an argument. We all had this conversation with Planet of the Apes, where a similar question was asked about faith or something by that group, right, in the court. The relevance is somebody appointed a faith minister or a faith person to be a part of the selection committee.
Right.
That is its relevance.
One person out of how many? Like it's giving,
yes, but
it's
he
being
elicited
given too much weight in the qualifications of who.
No,
should
because
go. And he asked that question in order to manipulate.
Right,
everyone.
which I have no problem. I have no issue. I have no issue with the fact that he asked the question to manipulate that because it is his fault that he does that, right? Like I don't have any issue with that. My point is
eliciting a response from the rest of the group,
but
wasn't there for that.
But you said though that the representation, like that she is toast because she does not represent 95%.
She was toast as soon as Palmer Joss asked that.
But my question is, so the fuck what? Like, so what? Yeah. I mean, like, that's the point of what I'm saying.
All I'm saying is we're not debating
that she wasn't going to get the position because they were going to talk themselves out of it because of her answers to the question. What we're trying to talk about is, and what Ellie was trying to talk about is, why the fuck does it matter? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, I mean,
just
I
because
answered that like
she
3
would.
times.
Oh my God. Okay.
I'm not
We're
agreeing.
moving on. We're moving on.
No, you're not understanding me. I'm not agreeing with these people. I'm saying that these people are also faith-based by nature.
Though.
They
weren't
are
even thinking about it, but groupthink took over, and then they allowed Drummond's. He saw the opening.
So you're saying
they allowed his answers.
Palmer
His
Joss,
answers.
only Palmer Joss on that committee believes in God.
No,
I'm saying
that's what I'm saying.
I'm saying no one else was asking that question because it didn't fucking matter.
But once he asked it, she was sunk because they started thinking about it.
I'm not saying you're wrong about that, but I'm also still saying it's an irrelevant matter. It doesn't matter.
I mean, it's totally irrelevant.
She's not going to
you.
meet God. She's going to meet another. Think of it as like being an ambassador to another country. What the fuck does it matter if I believe in God or not?
It doesn't. We're talking about why these people did this, not whether it matters or not.
It allowed them to feel more comfortable about their choice of Drumlin on the margins because he told them what they wanted to hear.
Sure.
That's
there you
all
go.
it was.
You answered the question. That's what all I was trying to do.
I don't understand, but okay.
So the point is,
so
he
happens
gets
next,
picked.
Jeff?
He gets picked, and they build the machine, and it's a big press day, and they're going to send the they were going to test the machine just to make sure that everything was right, and he's basically playing the face of the whole thing, and he is. I mean, even Jodie Foster kind of chuckles about the fact that, wow, he's really playing to the audience here. Well, what they don't realize is that Joseph the terrorist, our good old Jake Busey, has gotten into the structure, and he has snuck a bomb into the thing, and as it is kind of basically going, she sees him on the security camera or whatever, and she's like, "Hey, Drumlin, there's a guy there that's not supposed to be there." To which he spots him. They have a wrestling, they try to wrestle the thing in his hand away from him, and he hits the button and it blows up the machine. Which, with that, basically seemingly instantaneously sinks everybody's desire to continue to go with the program.
I mean, it costs what, like
billions of dollars? Yeah,
I think they said $1/3 of $1 trillion or something
like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's nothing else here, and they kind of basically fold the whole concept. You would think they'd get that insured, but what do I know? Anyway,
who the hell is going to insure that thing?
Hey, Lloyd's of London insure anything
for $250 billion.
Sure, why
$1 trillion.
Yeah. Well, there is one person who did kind of insure it, though.
Yep.
After Drumlin gets buried, all of that, and it's basically everything is dead. Ellie goes back to her room at the hotel, and there's like a transmission, like a computer is set up for her to basically talk to Haddon, and Haddon's like, hey, there are 2 machines. Why build one when you can build a second one for twice the price?
Right. That always cracked me.
The first rule in government spending.
Yeah, why buy one for the price of one when you can make 2 for the price of 2?
Yeah. So basically, and he's like, they still want an American go. It's like, it's a Hokkaido island in Japan. We'll come pick you up. We'll take you. So she gets out there, and she notices inside the thing, and this is another little clever touch. The schematic said nothing about a chair or any kind of harness. And it's like, yeah, we're not going to send you in anything without safety precautions. Still, it's like they trusted enough to build the thing. Not all the way though. It's like we still got to put you in a seat that's got seatbelt. And sure enough, we find out later, as the thing works as it is supposed to, it starts up this massive amount of energy. When she's inside, I always thought this was cool that, like, first of all, when the thing closed, it sealed itself to the point where it's like the whole, like the door, like the seams to the door disappear.
Yeah.
And she just kind of looks at it. It's like, oh, that's kind of neat. The door's not there anymore. But then as the thing is powering up, everywhere she looks is now, you can basically see through it, particularly the floor. So she can kind of see what it is that she's about to be dropped into. I always thought that was kind of a cool added touch that, there's no screen on this thing, but she's going to see everything. Well, when she eventually gets, she basically is telling them, like, yeah, there's a vibration here. And they're like, yeah, everything seems normal on our end. She's like, okay, whatever, I'm good to go. To which, thankfully, Kent is there to basically say, I can hear her saying that she's good to go because everything is getting screwed up as far as transmission and everything. Well, she gets sent through basically a series of wormholes, and she's being shown basically different celestial things. Like she's shown like a quadruple sun system. She's shown basically a galaxy, like, from above, and she eventually lets herself out of the chair, to which then the chair breaks off and seals itself off, and then everything is perfectly calm. So yeah, that chair is not part of the plan. Don't put it in. Anyway, it's a much smoother ride without the seatbelt, as it turns out. But anyway, so she eventually in a way, it's kind of an out of body experience. Like it's like an out of pod ship experience, where she ends up on this beach, which is the drawing of Pensacola. Mm-hmm. Has the same twisted palm tree and all of that. But she also notices that, like, it's obviously not real, because if she touches anything, if she touches the air, it looks like liquid. And she sees kind of almost like the beings that we saw at the end of Midnight Special, kind of walking down the beach, and it coalesces itself into her father. And basically she says at that point, you've taken memories from me, and basically synthesizing something for me to see. And they're like, yeah, this would be better, this is easier, for you to accept what you're learning. And basically they say, yeah, it's like, you're an interesting species. You're not alone. But the next step will come. You just gotta wait for it, basically. And, and it's a nice little scene where, she gets reunited with her father, one last time. And then she's sent back to the ship, which basically just goes straight through into the bay on Hokkaido Island. And she's like, what day is it? It's like, you were only gone for like a split second, basically.
Yeah,
it's like,
it went straight through.
It went straight through. It's the same. It's you just went. Yeah, it's like 5 seconds after you launched. And then basically, she is now having to kind of talk about her own experience, much like Palmer Joss kind of explained previously, where it's like, I experienced these things and I saw this and I saw that, but there's no evidence. The video that you were supposed to be taking was just static. There's nothing there. You're only out of eyesight for a split second. To which she admits that. She's like, yeah, split second. But that doesn't explain what I experienced and what I saw.
But she does do like one better than Joss, right? Like she says, yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. I would be skeptical too. I'd want more proof. I totally get it, right? I may not even have experienced what I think I experienced. Essentially, is what she says, but she says I still experienced it. I'm not going to strike it from the record like you're asking me to. It's what I experienced. I'm telling the truth, right? Mm-hmm. As far as she knows. So, and that passion for that, and also Joss kind of like Palmer Joss kind of seeing his own experience in hers, right? He believes her, because he'd be a hypocrite not to.
Right? Yeah, I mean, he even goes he kind of goes to bat for her. Yeah. He's like, I have no reason not to believe her.
Right.
So yeah. And then that's when, it's said that that the static was not just a few minutes of static. It was 18 hours of static, which is the indication to us that something did happen. Or at least that's what, we're supposed to. Certainly, I mean, aside from what we saw in the movie, the evidence is there for us to say, yeah, Jodie Foster did experience these things.
She was, at least gone for, what was it, 18 hours?
18 hours.
In relativity, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, 18 hours of static, split second of not being visible.
I wonder if they had taken like carbon dating. Can you get at that? Can you kind of tell somebody's age from their
I don't know.
corporeal state? Is that possible? Like, could they have taken a sample before she left and a sample after she left and been able to determine that she was 18 hours older, even though she was only gone for a second?
I don't know if that's possible or not.
I don't know if that's possible either, but it'd be kind of interesting to know.
I would say probably not. Just because
probably
just have her hold a piece of fruit.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Here's a banana. Yeah.
I mean, maybe, right? I mean,
something that ages quicker would be what I would do.
Yeah, that's super smart. Yeah.
Yeah, here's what's that? Oh, the schematics. They put a chair in instead of the little banana stand that they had instead. So they could see that it's like, oh, these bananas are a little more brown.
If anybody does this again, goes on this contact ship thing, take a banana.
Take a banana or a pear or something.
Work. A pear or a peach would probably be even better. Those things go fast. Yeah.
They are not strong creatures. No, but so I mean, and she ends up basically she ends up back at the VLA, the Very Large Array, and is now basically
she's been given a grant. That was a kind of a comment. It's like, what do we do with her? It's like, well, give her a grant to start. And it looks like she's just doing pure research and teaching kids about science, and not being all like weird about, I experienced this thing, it must be true.
And going out and preaching it. Yeah.
Right. She's just she's taking a little bit of faith that there will be, a second coming, right? Because there will be another step at some point, and she doesn't know when. May not be in her lifetime, but that's okay.
Yeah.
She's inspiring the next step.
Yeah.
Like her father did.
Right.
That's the big deal.
Keep
right?
listening. Keep listening.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And I love every scene in which she is talking about like the concepts, the science, the first steps of going out and finding something, right? Like like there's the scene with Palmer Joss in which she's saying, it's like if there was, you have all of these galaxies and all of these stars and all of the planets that could be around the stars, and if there was just one, then and it's like it is, and like she does really seem or at least passionately be able to say the stuff that like Carl Sagan was passionately saying. It's a good performance in that way.
This movie was saved for me by, okay, we were talking about this very early on, and Jason asked me to wait. The relationship between Palmer Joss and Jodie Foster is very superficial.
Yeah.
Right? But its interactions from the beginning to the end are meaningful.
Yeah.
Right? Like the fact that they're in love is superficial as fuck. But the fact that he says something to her early that comes back later, and like things are replayed in important moments that make Palmer Joss's existence to her important. Yeah. Otherwise, it would just be like, why is this love story in here? And I really don't think it should be a love story. It should have been more, they could have been on a TV set together arguing this shit.
Sure.
Right? Like they could have been in a more constructive to the story setting. Yeah. But it's still okay.
It's still okay.
Yeah, I think it's okay too, because it does show that, that they do still have the common ground of truth. Right. And it's like they can have
loving. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Didn't interrupt, but yes.
Yeah. It's like their passion for another thing kind of ignites their passion for each other. That sounds really, really stupid. But it's,
no, it is. That sounds like the tagline for a romantic movie.
Exactly. but it is kind of what's going on here, right? I mean, like
it is stupid, but it is what could go on in our lives
absolutely.
now.
Absolutely.
With our across the aisle bullshit.
Exactly.
Not to get into it, but
well, yeah. I mean, as long as there's common ground in the middle, right? You can work from the common ground. It's but like one of the I mean, it is the weakest part of the movie that still gets a pretty big pass from me, because I like
it's kind of essential.
Yeah, and I like the characters. It's like I would like to hear more about what Palmer Joss thinks and how
and I think
how he comes to those conclusions.
I think that's the thing, is you never hear him state any cases.
Yeah.
Other than when he's talking to Ellie, and it's very like very superficial. I believe in God. You don't. Whether she does or not, I don't know, but she definitely sides on that side of things. And their conversations, their debate is very superficial. You don't really get a full sense of his intellect,
right?
Other than just like countering her with hypotheticals, right?
Yeah, and he is. I mean, and I guess you could say some of the intellect comes with the fact that he does present himself well. He's well spoken. He's never combative,
right?
He
seems like someone who is almost scientific in his approach to weighing relevant factors, right? But yeah, I wish there was a little bit more depth to him.
Yeah. Well, the problem with that is,
other than just being the foil of Jodie Foster philosophically.
I agree with you, but if you give him too much argument, there is no proof to his argument. So the lesser his argument is, do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, and therein lies some of the problem too, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
but if you make him too like assertive, then you're like, I don't fucking buy this guy because he's giving me shit that I know isn't provable. So you have to walk a tightrope there a little bit.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Definitely.
Now, so I wanted to talk about this, particularly a couple of things that were in this Roger Ebert book where he included it
Oh no, Roger Ebert.
with his great movies list. Because initially he did give the movie 3.5 out of 4 stars. In
That's
2000,
pretty good.
that's pretty good. Yeah, he was a big champion of it. In 2011, he revisited it, and he said that he revisited it because he had a lot of conversation about creationism with people that he didn't. I mean, he didn't really agree with it. He was never that religious, but he said that it was an interesting conversation to have with people and how they came to kind of agree on those types of things. Plus, he had been fighting cancer. He was realizing where things were going, and he was never afraid of really dying. But his revisiting the movie had a really, really deep impact on him, where he had a lot of different new ideas about it that he didn't expect to have before. One of which was he did feel that the movie was relatively bold for its time to position a science versus religion conversation. Even in 2011, he felt that that was still fairly bold, where it gave both sides an equal opportunity to argue itself, basically. Do you take the faith side or do you take the science side? He said that in thinking about that, one of the other things that he thought about was, isn't it kind of interesting how her whole journey is almost can, or at least can be looked at as an act of God. The day that she finds out that the whole thing's being shut down, she gets the message. The fact that somebody, that while, yes, she was kept out of going on the first mission, she was also saved by the other guy being killed. And then she got the opportunity to go. All of these things were not what you would have expected it to play out in reality, which kind of then questions he doesn't really go too deep into it, but he does kind of have the idea of, could there be a read in this in which the faith helps the science? Which I do find kind of an interesting take. Not one that I necessarily buy into, more just because, movie had to happen, story had to happen. But
I'm surprised he didn't see that the first time. Not that we need to talk about it.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he is repurposing some of that a little bit, but that, it is something that he thinks more, or he thought more about the second time. But the one thing that I do love, and I sent this to you, was how he ended the thing, how he ended the review. He says, when Ellie was asked by Congress if she believed in God, the correct reply would have been, that's none of your business. That would have been the correct reply of any American, no matter whether they believed in God or not. And I think it
wasn't Congress, though.
Well,
it was an international selection committee.
Whatever. But I mean,
I don't want to argue this again, but he's kind of wrong. But I get where he's coming from, because I think from a personal perspective, it is nobody's business.
Well,
when you're sending an emissary, there is some question about who you are sending. I mean, it's natural.
Yeah, I mean, it's natural to ask that, but I think the idea is, I mean, like, the sentence before that is, and maybe I should have read this too, consider the politician who disparaged separation of church and state, when Ellie was asked by, it's like.
That's earthly, though. But we shouldn't, we don't have to get into this again. I know it was a thing earlier.
Well, I mean, but I mean, like, I think that the idea is if we are to look at how we are supposed to kind of treat religion and how religion itself claims it should be.
You're talking about an earthly view again, so we should just move past it.
I still think that has nothing to do with anything. But still, I mean, people can ask the question all they want, but
You're within your right 100% to say none of your fucking business. And that's what I would say.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And, but that's and that should be the correct approach in general about stuff like that, right? It's, but anyway, this movie, while I do think it is a product of its time in some ways, we mentioned earlier that it is quaint, in some of the approach of some of this, where I think certainly it would not be, oh God, if PureFlix made this movie, it wouldn't be very, Palmer Joss would be ramming Bibles down people's throats.
I really fucking like this movie. I think it's well done. I think we didn't talk about it, and Jason, I don't want to belabor this, but we didn't talk about that shot with the mirror, which is fucking wonderful.
That's so cool.
It's so fucking cool. So when you see this movie, pay attention to the girl running down the hallway at a mirror. It's fucking amazing. Sorry if you want to say something, Jason.
No, I'm glad I know. It's kind of like it's kind of apropos to this movie, but I kind of like knowing how they did it, but I kind of don't.
That's when I sent it to you, I'm like, if you want to ruin it, because once I knew, I'm
had
still
to know.
perplexed.
My curious mind has to know. And yeah, you're right. I didn't fully understand it in the way it was written, the explanation. But when I watched this special feature on compositing,
you had
the Blu-ray.
I saw you send a picture, but
I was like, oh shit! I just needed to see it, and like how they composited two shots with one shot in the other shot in a blue screen in the mirror. I was like, oh my God, that's
it really is. Like, forget about how they did it. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
It's so cool.
Because I don't know when in the last year somebody, probably you, Jason, was like, I still don't know how they did this.
What's amazing to me too about that is that shot was conceived. Like,
right, somebody figured it out. I don't know if it
was Zemeckis, or I don't know if it was in the storyboarding, but yeah. They were like, wouldn't it be cool if we had a shot that looked like this? And I honestly would never even think to compose a shot like that.
I still don't fucking. I know where the blue screen is. I know where the girl is running from. I think there's two shots. I don't know.
It's so
fucking amazing.
It's astounding.
I mean, it's so smooth. It's so well.
And then add on to that the way the mirror comes back, and you see the picture of her and her father in the other room.
Was there some dude on the other side like resetting shit? I know it's blue screen again, but
it's outrageous.
I mean, it's just
outrageous.
This is where yes, we are better off for technology.
Yeah.
Proved you wrong in your own movie, Palmer Joss.
Fucking Palmer.
Well, Palmer Joss is out there shilling AI for Salesforce now, so
that's true.
Yeah, he is. He's like, don't let the bad actors on your train in the first place. I did a bad
that was pretty bad, but pretty great too.
But I was rolling good boogers in my fingers.
Oh,
he's a lifelong Washington Commanders fan, so I'm all.
How did that happen? Texas boy.
Well, Uvalde's pretty far away from Dallas, so probably closer to.
Right. I need to wrap this up.
All right. So let's.
Everybody does.
We've done it.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
This is a great film, I think. Yes. I won't let anyone disparage it. But next week we're going to talk about at least one great film.
Oh, I mean the movie that is this Contact is kind of the catching up to this other great movie about. Lots of stuff. And the
other half of our conversation, I'm not sure yet because I don't know when the last time I saw it was.
I mean, it's an interesting duology. Next week, we're going to have a discussion. We're not going to have our normal type of episode, but we're going to discuss 2001: A Space Odyssey and 2010, The Year We Made Contact. Two movies directly tied to one another that cannot be more different in terms of how they're made. But they are both, I think, very, very worthy and very solid, hard science fiction movies. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to kind of talk about, because I think this will carry on a little bit more about like some of these kind of metaphysical concepts that this whole month has been a part of.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
look forward to that. That is next Wednesday. That is August 28th. Go to filmseizure.com, find all the places you can follow us, all the places we can subscribe to our to get our episodes and everything like that. On Monday, I wrap up my Star Trek Next Generation Borg episodes with the two-parter Descent. That is also all the same places, filmseizure.com. What have yous. This weekend on my website, bmovieanima.com, we have on Friday a review of Barbed Wire. Lots of boobs, lots of problems, but lots of stuff I do like about that movie still. And then on Saturday, the newest episode of B Movie Enema, the series, I do the movie Private Hell 36, a little noir film starring Ida Lupino. Good stuff. Good stuff. My co-host doesn't like it, but I did. Anyway, that's the way it goes. Anyway, so anyway, until then, I'm Jeff Arbuckle.
I'm sorry I was argumentative.
Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to Crossfire.